This is the Roller Coaster Podcast, and I'm your host, Lucy Q. Life is a wild ride. It has twists and turns. It's scary, exciting, and downright fun. So throw your head back, arms in the air, and come along with me for the ride.
Life is like a roller coaster, baby, baby. I wanna ride.
Okay, ladies. I had my eyes opened by taking a quiz, the Money Personality Quiz found on the website of today's guests. But before we get to that, I want to ask you, did you know that 50% of women fear that they won't have enough money in retirement? And women are 80% more likely to live in poverty in retirement than men? And over half of all employed women worldwide are in vulnerable employment, which means that they have low pay, low benefits, or no benefits, lack of any protective standards, lack of control, and maybe even just casual employment. So that leads me into today's guest. Joining me today is Virginia Baker-Wolf, a certified money coach, to share how to smash your money blocks and start living your highest potential. Welcome to the roller coaster, Virginia.
Hi, Lucy. Thank you for having me.
So obviously, although, I think on your website, you make reference to, women getting the right to vote, but we've obviously not come as far as we should when it comes to something like understanding and being actively involved in money. So my first question to you is, where does your money journey begin?
My money journey begins in around 2015, and my husband and I had a few issues, financial issues, and I realized that I didn't know anything about money, and it made me very anxious. And when I talked to a couple of other women, and I had a much deeper appreciation for things that I was feeling, like having the image of the bag lady in my head. Do you know what the bag lady is?
Like somebody homeless?
Yeah, homeless,
yeah.
Old lady, yeah. So I had this image of the bag lady in my head and worry about retirement. And when I started to talk to other women, I found out that more than 50% of women run around with the bag lady in their head. Like you just quoted some of my statistics, 50% fear that they won't have enough money in retirement. Anyway, 2015, I realized that I knew nothing. And I felt about money the same way I did feel about my car going to the mechanic. So if I take my car to the mechanic, he could sell me anything because I don't have a clue. I don't have a clue. And the reality is I don't want to have a clue about my car's mechanical situation. So I felt like a patsy taking my car to the mechanic. And it's a good analogy with money or of money, because I felt exactly the same way about money, that it was very boring and tedious. And I didn't want to go there. I didn't want to know about it. And a whole load of institutions and social constructs could take advantage of me because of my lack of knowledge and my lack of responsibility. So with the car, I can ask my husband. My husband takes my car to the mechanic. I don't even bother anymore because they can't rip him off. He has a good understanding of the car. So it's like he's going to know what's right and what's not. But in regards to the money, it turns out that a woman, this is precisely what women have done. They've handed over the money to the partner in the same way I hand over my car and say, I don't want to do that stuff because I'm not good at it. So we find ourselves in the same position in regards to money. So I became very curious about this. And curious is a very good state of mind. Curious doesn't have any judgment attached. And curious is a little bit like standing apart from yourself and looking at yourself and wondering, what is this all about? So instead of beating myself up, I got curious. And when I get curious, I go off and do the reading and the research. And whilst I was doing that, I realized that more than 50% of the women in the world felt exactly the same way I did. So I wasn't odd, I wasn't peculiar, I was actually part of a large tribe. So I found that very interesting as well. So I started doing more reading, more research, and then finally, because I'm a coach and I've been a coach for 20 years, and I have a great regard for coaching, I looked around for a money coaching course and I found one in the States, in California, the Money Coaching Institute. And so I did that course, and it's not a weekend course, you know, it's like it's a good solid course. And it's run by a woman by the name of Deborah Price, and Deborah is lovely, and it's a good course. So I got certified as a money coach, and I kept reading and writing, and I also started seeing an EFT practitioner. EFT is emotional freedom technique, and this is a technique that is very similar to another psychological technique, which is EMDR. And EFT is scientifically validated that it does get results, and I'm absolutely convinced it gets results. So I started working with an EFT practitioner who specialized in money. And just in our conversation, she said to me, you know, in Australia, there is a really good money course. So I went looking at that, and I did that course, and I thought it was excellent. The only thing about it was that it didn't really touch the sides of where I was at. Like it didn't say you're likely to be very anxious about this, or yes, we know about the bag lady, most of us do have it. It didn't say anything like that. So although the information was useful and fun, it didn't go deep enough. It was too surface. So my background is as an academic. So if something is in my sort of umbrella of skills and expertise, I will turn that into a course, because like if you're an academic, you do the research and then you turn it into something that other people can learn from. And so that's what I did. So as I've gone along, I've learned more, but the absolutely most important thing for me was being validated by the statistics that I found. 63% of Australian women have a problem at the end of the month. So 63% of women are extremely anxious and worried about money all the time because they can't get clear. They can't, they're not safe.
There's more month than there is paycheck.
Absolutely. That's exactly right. Yeah. So, and then if you think, well, what does that mean? And get curious again, what does that mean, that 63%? Well, as I said, it means that a lot of women are living with an awful lot of anxiety, and we don't talk to each other. There is such a huge taboo about money. There's a greater taboo about money than there is about anything else, including death, sex, and drugs. People will tell you something about a drug problem more likely than they'll tell you about money. So what that means for women is we're very isolated, and we don't have permission to discuss money. Generally speaking, nobody has given us permission. So my curious again, my response to that is, let's give ourselves permission. We don't need anyone else to give us permission. Let's give ourselves permission. If we could talk to each other, we would have some support. And not only would we have support, we'd probably be able to get into some positive action. And by that I mean, if you have a woman who is definitely under earning, and the majority of women are under earning, if you take the woman that's under earning, I forget where was I up to?
You were curious in, with the 63% of women that had more month than they did paycheck.
Yeah. Well, that 63% of women is stressed and uncomfortable and they're not safe. And what that ripples into then is bad health, like health conditions.
Well, yeah, the
And
stress alone.
there are proven correlations between money stress and illness. And when you let that ripple out a little bit further and get curious again, what does that really mean? What does that have an impact on? Well, in the first instance, it has an impact on our own well-being and the stress issue that we're carrying. But more than that, what it does is it affects our capacity to be in relationship because we're stressed. So if a mother is really stressed, she's not the most present mother. And, even if she's absolutely trying her best and, she's running herself ragged and she can't get clear. So the money stuff has a constant ripple going out where it touches other issues. And I'd go so far as to say that money coaching is actually the most important coaching work. So when you look at executive coaching and coaching in organizations and leadership coaching, in that coaching, the coachee can still put things under the table. They can put things under the table because they might not be happy about it, but they're not in an anxious mess about it. And there's a rule in coaching: ask the question 3 times. After that, you've been told by the coachee that they're not going there. Now, thankfully, in my relationship with my coachees, I don't just barrel along and ask the question 3 different ways. The thing is, after they don't want to answer you, the thing is to get curious again and say, what's this about? Because it's about something and it doesn't have to be a negative. But the issue is that with money coaching is a hot mess. Money work is a hot mess, and you can't hide any of it. It's all there to be seen. And when everything is there to be seen, that means that you can have a woman who's earning in excess of $200,000, but she still has issues.
Yes. Yeah. So, Virginia, for women that are listening right now, the first thing that's popping into mind is, how can they actually gauge their understanding of money? And, do they know enough? And then if not, where do they begin to pick away at this and develop their own curiosity so that, they are more involved and they are more present in their money situation?
I think, look, I'm often a yellow canary. Do you know what that means?
The canary in the coal mine.
Yeah, I am often the yellow canary. I did a gap year when nobody else, didn't have a name then. The leadership coaching and manager as coach I mean, everybody's doing that now, but 15 years ago, they were not all doing that. I was.
Especially women.
Especially women. And money is exactly the same as those other issues where I've been a yellow canary. And I would predict that in 10 to 15 years, women will have we will have done some money coaching work and we will be able to talk about it. And the other thing I was going to say about talking about it is you can simply have a woman who's under earning, but if that woman then sits down with her girlfriends and has a talk and she's saying my job this, my job that, and it's what I'm earning, and the other women there know that this woman is more capable than this and she should be earning more, then just as girlfriends, they're going to be supportive and say, why don't you look for something else? Or why don't you go and talk to your boss about a raise? And so the first thing that needs to happen there with those women is they need to recognise that they're under earning. So where do women, so it's a hot mess, and where do women start? We start by acknowledging where we are. So if you're, look, do you know the number of women, again, earning $200,000 plus who can't look at their bank accounts?
I can imagine.
So the place to start is to get educated. And I would suggest to any woman that she should choose what that means for her and to find her own way. So that might be that every morning they take 15 minutes to look at some money stuff online. There's an approach avoidance thing here. It's a bit like cognitive behavioural therapy. You need them to approach the problem to be able to change their beliefs. And what we do is we avoid, and I'm not just talking about women, men do this too. And it's not all women, but it's a majority. We avoid. And if we avoid, that means we don't have to look at that stuff and we don't have to know about that stuff. So if we don't have to know about it, then we don't have to get anxious about it. So women are actually quite bothered by their own anxiety. And that is the first place to start. So start doing some education in the way that suits that woman, the way that she likes to learn. So for me, it's books. And I can sit and do stuff online, but actually I'd rather have a book. There are going to be other women who'd rather do it all online. It might be that you subscribe in your country to whatever the money magazine is and read it. And you don't have to read it all in one go. You can just read a page a day. So there's so much anxiety that we can't even approach the problem. So the first thing we have to do is have compassion for ourselves, to not beat ourselves up and to have compassion. It's a little bit like the suffragettes. If we look back at the suffragettes and getting the right to vote, should we beat those women up because they didn't do it fast enough? No, absolutely not. They were dealing with a social construct. They didn't like it, and they went out to bat about it, and they went out to advocate. And we got the right to vote. And this is exactly the same. So we don't want women beating themselves up. What we want is to have some community where we can talk to each other. So what I was saying about the woman who's under earning, her friends would present to her possibilities of how she could improve that situation. And going back to what you said about what should women do, educate themselves and manage the anxiety, because if they can manage the anxiety, they are far more resourceful than they know. And to manage the anxiety, there are a couple of different ways of doing that. So somebody might be quite good at meditation, or they might be quite happy to take on some meditation. And I would recommend, there's a meditation app with a silver ball. So if you go into the app store and you put in breathing app, it'll come up with a silver ball. And that is good because it maintains your focus on something so you don't get lost in your head. So meditation is an excellent thing. And then something to we need to bust through blocks. Women are carrying a great number of blocks about money. So we need to crash through. And to crash through, I think the best technique is emotional freedom technique.
And yeah, that was going to be my next point, is because, the way I see it, we as women tend to rely more on our emotions, and our emotions attached to something. So how does EFT, and it's also commonly known as tapping, how does that play into getting over our money situations?
Well, the first thing is to become aware that we're not comfortable with something. That's the first place. So what kind of tapping might work for you? What sort of thing would you tap on? So the first thing is to become aware. And then the next thing is to think, can I afford to work with a practitioner? Or no, that's not something I want to spend money on at the moment. So will I do this for myself? I suggest the practitioner. But if a woman says, well, I just can't manage that, so I feel a bit locked out, I would say, no, you are not locked out, darling. You get online and you look up some of the best tappers, and they all have scripts online. And my practitioner has things online, and you can tap along with the person who's doing a session online. So the best ones are Margaret Lynch for money. Margaret Lynch is the absolute best. And then you've got Brad Yates and Nick Ortner, and they all have a lot of stuff online. And my practitioner for ladies who might be in Australia is Alison Monaghan. She's highly trained and really effective. So the first thing with the EFT, the tapping, is to become aware of where we're at. And then we need to dig, and it's like peeling an onion. So you dig a little bit and you tap on whatever that issue was. And in tapping, we start out with a base point of how, of the degree to which we feel whatever this is. And as we tap, the practitioner or yourself, it's like, where am I now? Am I still an 8 on being angry about my mother and not giving me what I wanted? Because this is what it comes down to. A lot of these anxieties and stories are not from our adult. They were formed by 4 and 5-year-olds. And they were formed out of the fabric of our family. So very, very often we are repeating the story of our childhood without being aware of it. So we need to get aware of it. So that, the first question is, what was money like in my childhood? And a whole load of stuff will come up. And another good technique is to say, how did my mother manage money? How did my mother feel about money? What was my mother's money vibe? And so we write down a list of things, and then we go and say, and which one of those am I repeating? And we can do the same about father, and we can do the same about grandparents if they were closely involved in your childhood. So start to get educated. Do have compassion for yourself. Do use a technique. Go easy on yourself, and just start taking a few steps. And the thing is, with money, women are stumbling around in the dark. So in coaching, I say to somebody, when they can't see a way forward, or the way forward seems full of anxiety, I say, if this is the same as a car in the middle of the night, in the country, going down a mountainside with a lot of twists and turns. So you've got your lights on, but you can only see 20 yards, 30 yards, 50 meters in front of you. But we all have to have faith that when we reach that point 50 metres in front of us, there'll be another 50 metres or 100 metres that we can now see. So very often we have to complete some steps before we can see what the next steps might be.
That makes sense. And, before we wrap up, I just want to quickly touch on the money quiz that you have on your website, because it's very simple. It's basically a list of feelings or words, and you just select whatever resonates with you. So I did that earlier today. And as I emailed to you, once I saw the results, I thought, oh my God, that's frighteningly accurate, because, and I'm sharing this with people just so that they don't feel, if they get similar score results, they don't feel alone, or, that, they must be the only one with these results. So my highest score that I had come back, it said that I was classified as the innocent. And I'll just read the first line here that it describes. It says, the innocent takes the ostrich approach to money matters. Innocents often live in denial, burying their heads in the sand so they don't have to see what's going on around them. And the reason why I thought that was accurate for myself was because I like to think it's okay. It's going to take care of itself.
Ah, yes. Well, you are not alone, Lucy.
So I know I'm not alone. And then to add to that, which I got a giggle out of, was my second highest score was the creator, the artist. And it says, and again, very in tune with what I am. And it says the creator or artist are on a spiritual or artistic path. They often find living in the material world difficult and frequently have conflicted love-hate relationships with money. Again, bang on for me, because I am definitely on the spiritual path, and I do struggle with, the materialistic world. It is problematic for me. So I found that, those two results, although it seemed very simple, checking a few boxes, I was really surprised at how accurate the results are. So I highly encourage any woman listening that you just take it. It's not even 5 minutes. It's less than 5 minutes to take this, just to give themselves a better understanding of maybe where they are, because I believe that when we know better, we do better.
Absolutely.
And simply having that awareness is enough for you to go, okay, wait a second. Now I understand this. I can make a change. At least that's how it works for me.
Well, that's how it works for me too.
So,
and when you say what's the first place to start, it's exactly what you just said. The first place to start is to become aware. And that quiz is very accurate. And just doing that quiz and seeing what you get is already, it feeds into you being able to become aware.
definitely. So now, as we wrap up, Virginia, do you have any final thoughts or words of wisdom for our listeners?
My words of wisdom are that we need to start talking to each other, because if we can start talking to each other, that will normalize and validate us. And because this is such a taboo topic, I would say that if someone says, I just can't do that, then I would highly recommend that they make an appointment with the bank and find a female advisor at the bank to just go and have a chat with. Because this is like learning to ride a bicycle. It's exactly the same. Money is a learnable skill. Now, you think of a kid learning to ride a bicycle. We're not born knowing how to ride a bicycle, but we learn. And whilst we learn, we fall off and we don't get very far. And we're a bit worried that we might fall and hurt ourselves. Well, doing money is exactly the same thing. So instead of beating ourselves up, we have to take the point of view that this is something I don't know how to do. I mean, if you ask me, my father was the best souffle maker in town. He was known for it. If you asked me to make a souffle, I'd have to tell you, I don't know how to do that. Now, Does that mean I'm a terrible person? Does that mean I'm stupid? Does that mean I'm not being successful? No, that is an area I have not chosen to give any time to. I'm a very good cook. I could learn to make a souffle. It might take half a dozen goes, but I could learn how to do that. But I don't have any interest in it. So money is the same. It's exactly the same. We haven't been interested and we haven't learned about it. So we need to become interested and curious and start our learning little step by little step. And there's an Australian book, I recommend this on every podcast. He should be paying me, affiliate fees. There's a guy in Australia by the name of Scott Pape, and he wrote a book called The Barefoot Investor. It's the bestseller. And the reason why I like this book is because it is so conversational and there are no big words. And he takes you through step-by-step processes. And I highly recommend that book. And if somebody says, look, I'm so anxious, I don't even know where to start with Scott Pape's book. Just read a couple of pages every day and have a think. Just have a think about what he's saying.
I'll find a link to the book and put it in the show notes.
Yeah. And
so
then
that people can get it.
Yeah. And see if this book might be helpful for you. I guarantee you it'll be helpful to 90%. It's a fabulous little book. Yeah. So my wisdom is start learning, validate yourself, and don't bash yourself up, have compassion.
And Virginia, where is the best place that people can connect with you?
People can find me on The Money Project, www.themoneyproject.net.
To connect with Virginia, check out the show notes. I will have all of the links in there. And Virginia, thank you so much for joining me today.
It's been a pleasure, Lucy. And I'll send you my, I've got a wealth mindset ebook and workbook. I'll send you that link and then your listeners can get a copy if they want.
Perfect. I will have those links in the show notes as well. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Roller Coaster Podcast. Want to chat or share your ideas about today's show? Pop me an email at hello@therollercoasterpodcast.com. Don't forget to connect with me on Facebook and Instagram at The Roller Coaster Podcast. Our theme song, Roller Coaster, was performed by The Lucky Setback. Audio editing by the one and only Jeff Quigley of Quigley Creator.
Life is like a roller coaster.